everybody here in the UK, and good afternoon to those of you joining us from China. Welcome to the fourth in this week's series of webinars that CBBC is hosting, specifically for SMEs looking to enter or considering entering the Chinese market. My name is Mark Headley, a China Business Advisor with the China-Britain Business Council here in the UK. Today's speaker is a colleague of mine, Simon Stewart, based in our Shanghai office, who'll be talking about the subject of marketing your products in China. So before I hand across to Simon to begin his presentation, just a few words about CBBC. As many of you may already be aware, we are the main organisation here in the UK, helping British companies to grow and develop their business in China. Established back in 1954, next year is actually our 60th anniversary, and over those 60 years we're very proud to have helped many companies of all sizes and from all sectors of the economy to access opportunities in China. So we're there to provide advice, support and networking for British companies across all sectors. We're also a membership organisation, so our membership programme offers bespoke support and advice for companies looking to enter the market. We currently have a network of around about 900 companies, and we help them through our network of offices in China. So we currently have 13 offices across China as well as 10 offices here in the UK. We also merged together with the British Chambers of Commerce a couple of years ago and have strong connections with all levels of Chinese government and industry in China. We are also the strategic partner of UKTI UK Trade and Investment, and we deliver many of the UKTI trade services in China. For more information, you can go to our website, www.cbbc.org, and you can also find us on Twitter. So following on from last week's David Cameron's visit to China last week, we have put together a section on our website which is labelled Opportunity to Action. So if you go to the main landing page of our website, you will see the banner at the top of the screen here. If you click on that banner, that will take you through to a site which is dedicated for SMEs, and on there you'll find a variety of resources. So as well as a link to this series of webinars, you'll also find on there a number of reports that you can download. This includes a CBBC guide to selling online in China, our e-commerce guide, helping you to navigate the online ecosystem in China. We also have a report on there, a more detailed report on targeting the Chinese consumer that we recently put together with the help of Royal Mail. On there you'll also find hundreds of live business opportunities. These are the latest opportunities from companies in China looking to partner with British businesses. So certainly worth checking that out, as well as a number of practical fact sheets for SMEs on various aspects of doing business in China. Everything from how to go about setting up an entity in China to how to protect your intellectual property when doing business in China, and also issues such as due diligence, staffing, selling online, and so on. There are also interviews on there with other SMEs that have had some success in China doing business there, and a number of case studies where we've helped companies to research and set up partnerships with Chinese companies. So this week we've been holding a webinar every single day this week. So on Monday we had a webinar on the subject of finding an agent or distributor, selling online in China on Tuesday, avoiding scams when doing business in China, and then today obviously marketing your products in China. Tomorrow we have a more specialist session on applying for CCC marks in China. A big thank you as well to the EU SME Centre, which has helped us to put this series of webinars together. The EU SME Centre is a project funded by the European Union designed to assist European SMEs to export to China and establish presence in the Chinese market. It's a free, confidential source of information and advice, practical support and services. And if you visit the EU SME Centre website, you'll find a rich source of information, webinars, reports and expertise, and I'm sure that the EU SME Centre would be more than happy to answer any specific inquiries you may have. So just to talk you through, you will see a panel. You should all be able to see this panel where you can ask questions. There's a panel, there's a window at the bottom of that panel where you can enter questions as we go through the presentation. So please feel free to pass through any questions that you may have for Simon as we go through. There'll also be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So before I hand over to Simon, just a brief introduction to Simon. Simon spent 8 years in China altogether. He's has experience managing CBBC's research teams and has been very closely involved in many of the research projects that we have carried out for British companies looking to enter the China market. Prior to that, his experience was in the ICT sector in the UK, working as an account manager for BT and Microsoft, and he's also a graduate of Strathclyde University, where he studied Masters in Marketing. So with no further ado, I will hand across to Simon to give us his thoughts on how to go about doing marketing in China, how to go about marketing your products in the China market. Are you there, Simon?
I am there and I'm ready. Thank you very much for the handover and the introduction. As Mark correctly stated, my name is Simon Stewart. I'm a China business advisor working for China Britain Business Council based in the Shanghai office, and have been here for 8 years helping international companies, mostly SMEs, to enter and develop in the China market. So today's session we're going to be exploring how to create successful marketing plans specifically for the China market. We're going to be asking what are the key elements that we need to be thinking about as businesses, as SMEs entering the market or expanding in the market. I'm going to share with you some of the case studies of some companies to understand what they did successfully that made a difference to the way that they were able to develop their business and their marketing plans for China. So if we can flick to the next slide, just to quickly look at the agenda. We're going to look at what are the key elements that we're going to be looking at today. First thing that we're going to be looking at is focus. The companies that do really well in China are able to focus their time and resources to the market segments and the areas that will bring the largest return on investment or the quickest return on investment for them. And we're going to explore how companies have done that from a business, from a market segmentation perspective, but also from a geographical perspective. Second thing that we're going to look at is adapting your marketing mix for the China market. Take a look at some companies to see what changes they've made to create a value proposition which resonates to the Chinese consumer and works well for them. Thirdly, we're going to briefly look at social media, look at some key considerations there, because it is quite different to back in the UK. And finally, we're going to just summarize some next steps for your business to understand the types of things that perhaps you can be thinking about as you move forward in the China market. Now, if we can go to the next slide, just briefly before we start, I want to make it clear what I mean by marketing. Marketing for me is putting the customer at the focal point of every part of your business. It's about creating long-term win-win relationships with clients, with users, with partners, and with all stakeholders. So many people, when they come to me and talk about marketing, they want to talk about marketing communications. And that's an important part, but just one part of marketing. In order to be really successful in the China market, it's not good enough just to think about that one part. It's important to really take a marketing approach to developing and expanding your business in China with the customer at the center of everything that you do. So if we go on to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about focus. I'm going to talk a little bit about win-win relationships. So when you start to apply win-win relationships between your business and your new Chinese consumer, it's really important to focus on your niche client. Many people see the huge opportunities of China. They read about the many billions and trillions of renminbi that are being invested here, and they think about trying to get 1% of that large investment. What the smart companies do is, rather than looking at the market as a whole, they really focus on a particular niche. They don't look at the middle class in China as a whole, but the particular segment that helps them get inroads into the China market, a particular segment that really where their products and services really resonate. The second element of developing win-win relationships is with your partners. As you move into international markets, as your clients are further and further away from your headquarters, you need to adapt and create partnerships of organizations and companies that will act as your advocate in the China market and help create a pipeline of information and opportunities for your business going forward. And finally, a key consideration in terms of developing relationships in China is developing win-win relationships with the Chinese government. Business and government in China is inextricably linked. And this is especially the case when you're working with state-owned industries. Say, for example, if you're working into the healthcare market, you need to be creating your strategy, your marketing plans, in line with the direction that the government wants to go in line with the direction that the state-owned companies want to go in, and not against the direction that they want to go in. And if you take the time to research and understand what the Chinese government is trying to do in terms of developing the country, developing the industry, and you align your plan based upon those particular tenets, then you'll find that doors will open a lot more easily than previously before. So think about your niche customer, think about partners, and think about Chinese government, and always in the context of a win for them, but equally in the context of a win for you. So if we flick on to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about moving on from focus on particular customers and actually looking at focusing on the geographical area that you want to dedicate your time and resources to. China is often described as a continent with many different markets rather than a country with one market. Why? Well, because it's geographically, it's so vast, and there are many, many differences in terms of consumer behavior, differences in terms of wealth, differences in terms of international experience, and differences in terms of government policy, depending on which city or which area that you are targeting as a business. So, for example, consumer behavior in Shanghai, a very international city, will be very different to consumer behavior in Tianjin or Nanjing or Chengdu. So as you approach the China market, the smart companies are the companies that really look at the area where they will have most benefit. And we'll go into a case study of a company that did just that in a moment. If we flick onto the next slide, I just want to go into a little bit more detail as to the difference between what we call first-tier cities or first-tier markets. These are the markets you've probably heard of. These are the markets like Beijing, markets like Shanghai, markets like Shenzhen perhaps. These are really developed markets. They've got sophisticated customers, they've got international exposure, and they've got quite an established talent pool of highly qualified individuals that are good at English and have lots of different skills. And this is often the first place that companies tend to start their China experience. However, we are finding now that first-tier cities isn't always the best place to start, especially if you're an SME and you've got limited time and limited resources to spend. We're finding that the first-tier markets like Shanghai and Beijing, they're very, very competitive. All of the international companies are there. Many very competitive Chinese companies are there. The cost of labor and the costs of your business, if you're in retail, the cost of space is very, very high, and the market is very, very crowded. It can be difficult to penetrate. In terms of the regional cities, those are the cities which are further towards the west. These are we classify the growing markets, and they're somewhat less developed, less international exposure. Consumers may be less sophisticated than in the first-tier markets, but also they are more open to perhaps doing business in certain segments in certain areas. There may be clusters of industries there which are very, very interesting for many businesses, and these are large cities, and they're emerging cities. So really the important point there is not just to think about the first-tier cities of Shanghai, Beijing and Shenzhen, but also to consider some cities that could be very interesting, but you may not have heard of before. And if you'd like to know more information on China's regional cities, the CBBC website has a very thorough report that will give you an introduction to regional cities and perhaps allow you to start focusing on the geographical area that might be best for you. And at the end of these slides there, they'll be pointed to some resources which are useful, I hope. So if we go on to the next slide, I just wanted to talk to you about regional cities, but I wanted to highlight a case study of a company that has done particularly well in this particular area. And the company that I would like to highlight is Miller. Miller is an excellent company in the northeast of England. They make attachments for construction machinery, the type of attachments that you'd see on the end of a JCB or a Komatsu type of construction machine. And what Miller did well is that they really approached the market with a blank piece of paper to try and understand the demands of Chinese customers and try to look at the areas where they could build strong partnerships and strong relationships that would help them sell their products through to the market. So Miller didn't ignore the Shanghais and the Beijing. They still went to the trade shows, which are very important here, to build their brand, to understand more about the market, to understand more about consumers. But in terms of building relationships and partners, they were very successful actually in the north of China, in a place called Shanghai, and actually to the west of China in Chengdu. And these are very much growing cities, and these were cities that would be really interested in their particular product. So what Miller did well was that they thought about the first-tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing, and they were present there in the trade shows. But in terms of investing time and resources and building relationships, they also considered the regional cities, and they were able to make some very good progress there, which allowed them to develop their business more quickly and to build their China business very, very effectively. So Miller is a good British SME that is being successful in China by focusing on regional cities as well as the first tier. And what you can do is you can think about your business and think about potentially looking at what areas, what geographical area might be interesting for you within China, also outside in some of China's regional cities. Good. So the next part of the presentation, the next slide, introduces us to the marketing mix. Now, the marketing mix will be very familiar to many of us. You'll see the 7 Ps, which we all have come to know and love: product, price, promotion, people, process, and physical environment. Now, An important aspect of your marketing mix for China, and something you'll hear a lot about in the context of being successful in China, is localization. You'll hear about this word localization an awful lot, and the reason why this is important is that many SMEs struggle when they take a market proposition or a product or a service that they're comfortable with, that is successful in Western markets or in the UK, and they try and apply the same product or the same service into the China market. 9 times out of 10, SMEs or all international businesses need to think about changing their product, changing the way they price, changing the way they promote their products, changing the types of way that they work with people in a way that will allow them to resonate with their new Chinese customer, in a way that will allow them to be specifically successful in China. So one key success criteria in terms of your marketing plan is localizing your marketing mix. Now this is the established 7 Ps that we all know very, very well. And in the context of China, we add one more P. Next slide, it'll show you that the extra P that you need to add in terms of your marketing mix in China is partnerships. It is incredibly important to understand how you are going to manage the relationship with your partners and your channel to the China market. It's really important to understand, to select your partner effectively and understand how you're going to be able to build relationships and motivate them to promote and to sell and to deliver more for your product in this remote part of the world, in the China context. So think about how your product works, not just with your customers, but how easy is it for your partners to sell it on. Think about pricing for your customers. Think about your pricing through your partners. Think about how you can help your partner promote and market your product in the China market, because it has to be a win-win. It has to be both the partner and yourselves investing time and effort in making this successful. So again, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to just focus on a couple of SMEs that have been particularly successful in this area. I'm going to focus on one which is more business to consumer, such as Caithness Glass. They create a beautiful crystal for Western markets worldwide and for the China market now. I'm also going to focus on a business-to-business example with JRI Orthopedics to look at potentially how they had to do things differently for their marketing plan in China. So if we go on to the next slide, what we can do is we can focus on the Caithness Glass example in terms of how they developed their marketing plan. Now, with many SMEs that enter the China market, it starts with trade shows. Now, trade shows are incredibly important in the China market, and they're incredibly useful. You may or may not use trade shows or find them useful in Western markets, but I would strongly encourage you to try and engage in the trade shows in China. Maybe it's because it's such a large country. Many people like to come to trade shows to work, to build connections, build their network, what they call guanxi, build a network of business contacts here. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to promote your brand and to build what is probably a new brand for the China market, but also to get really important feedback from potential clients and partners on how your product and service is going to work or not work in China, and how you need to localize to the China market. So if you go to trade shows with an open mind and you really use them as a vehicle to research, it can be very, very effective. You can look at your competitors, see what they're doing around pricing. You can look at the styles which are very, very popular here, and you can look at how customers are, how your competitors are promoting their particular products, and understand what you feel is being successful here and what is not. The reason why the Caithness example is very, very interesting to me is because they, based upon the research they did, the market research that they did through the trade shows, the market research that they did with China-Britain Business Council, they actually made a decision to focus on a younger market segment that they would do in the UK. They felt that there were definitely opportunities within the younger market section, say around people within the 30s. That really affected the decisions they made as a business in terms of pricing. It affected the decisions that they made as a business in terms of promotion, and it affected their whole marketing strategy and how they communicated with clients. They found that many of their products already were very popular, but there were some that were clearly more popular than others. Some of the abstract products that were so popular in the West didn't resonate so much with Chinese consumers. So what they did was they focused on the products that were going to be successful in the China market, and actually they looked at what types of things that this target segment were interested in. So were they interested in particular Chinese myths and stories and the particular designs around that? So they localized their product specifically for this market niche, and that accelerated their development in the market. I think another area which many SMEs look at when they're in B2C is the gifting market. I'm very conscious that we are approaching Christmas in the UK, and we do have some kind of Christmas present buying here, but the key time for buying gifts in China is Chinese New Year, and that will come up at the end of January. And there's a certain way and culture around buying gifts. There's certain packaging elements which are so important that needs to be changed for the China market. And Caithness, because they were focused on the market segment, because they'd researched it, they'd spent time up front researching the market so well, they were able to create packaging and products that were going to be very, very effective at particular times in the Chinese calendar. And in terms of how they promoted their product, they didn't spend a huge amount of money on overt advertising. They really focused on creating a wonderful physical environment for clients when they walked into stores. They focused on creating a great client experience for them. So actually what they did was they spent their time and resources training and educating their distributor, their contacts in China on how to really tell the story of the glass and how to really bring product to life when their partner was one-to-one with customers. So that they decided to invest more in time and training and education. They thought that would pay most dividends in terms of creating an effective marketing strategy for China. So that's very much the people element of the 7 Ps and the physical environment element of the Ps was definitely an area that they wanted to focus on in terms of creating success in the China market. And I should mention there that the conversation would have been 2 ways. They would be working with their distributor in terms of creating the story of the brand, and they'd also be listening really hard about their feedback about how they can be successful in the China market. So again, it comes down to this basic marketing premise of being curious about each other, creating win-win relationships between yourself as a UK business, the Chinese partner that you're working with, and your end consumer, who is going to basically be attracted by the products and the services that you provide. So that's an example of a company, a UK company, that's really been successful in this market in terms of developing a marketing strategy from a business to consumer perspective. And if we flick onto the next slide, we'll take a look at JRI, orthopedic implants. Now, JRI clearly recognized that orthopedic implants is an industry which is going to grow. If you look at the healthcare market, It's one of those markets where there are very large figures of growth in terms of expected growth between now and 2015 and onwards. The population trends here, the older generation, definitely show markets there. But that isn't enough. JRI still went in, and the great advantage that JRI have is that their whole approach is not about selling products, but it's about creating innovative solutions for their customer. And that's what gave them the advantage in China, because they were able to walk into the China market, and instead of selling product, they really tried to understand the Chinese patient experience. They really tried to understand the different where their customers, their end users, would touch doctors, would work with doctors, what types of clinics that would work in that particular area, what experts were in that area, and where the investment was going geographically. So because they had a very curious type of approach to understanding the market, understanding the value chain, and understanding their customers' experience, then they were able to create products that really suited the Chinese market and the Chinese customer, and that was what was enabled them to be successful. They were also very clear to understand the competitive position, because China is no secret. Many of the international competitors are already here, and also there are many Chinese competitors that you really should not underestimate. They have, maybe they don't have the technology that Western companies do. Maybe they do, but they certainly do have very, very competitive pricing, and they certainly do have very, very strong relationships, both within government and within the healthcare arena. So they really took very seriously their competitive position and found a way to position themselves in a unique way to help them enter the market. And another area where JRI finally really looked to invest time is in assessing and selecting key partners for them in the China market. It's so important that you find a partner that you can work with that really complements your business. And so it's important to really be clear on what your criteria are in terms of the type of partner that you're looking for, to work with an organization that can help you in China, that knows China, that can create a creditable list for you in terms of which companies can fulfill those criteria and which they don't. And then a really important point is once you find that partner, is to really invest time in developing that relationship, and to come back to China, and to, if you can, invite them back to the UK to really cement and build that relationship, because the relationship is as strong as the commercial and the brand values that they have. So really investing time in building that relationship. And I know many companies, SMEs, that come to China maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Different people within the organization come out specifically to invest time with that partner, educating them, making sure that they understand the product and the new specifications, making sure that they are promoting your products more than perhaps other products, competitive products, and also listening to understand how this very dynamic market is changing and how perhaps your business needs to change with that dynamic market. So that's one thing that JRI did from a business-to-business perspective that we feel was what would make them very successful in the long term in building a sustainable, strong pipeline of business opportunities and a strong business for their future in China. So we've taken a look at focus. We've taken a look at the marketing mix, and on the next slide, there's the third aspect of the agenda that I wanted to touch on briefly, only because it is a very, very important part of being in business here, and that is social media. So if you look at social media is very, very widely used in China. 250 million social media users in China. And social media really does have an impact on buyer behavior in China. The consumers here in B2C or B2B will often have more trust in the information that they see on social media, what they feel is objective comments on social media, than they will in a brand, because they feel that the social media is more objective and they're going to get information there within a community of users. So it is a very, very powerful tool. Now, Facebook and Twitter is restricted in China, so it's very difficult to use that, but there are Chinese equivalents, obviously in Mandarin and Chinese language, that are used here. Some of those you can see on the screen there, Weibo, WeChat, QQ, Runrun, are similar types of platforms, but in Mandarin. I think the one social media that I would like to highlight that is available is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also available in China. There are about 2 million users, and so that is a very effective way using a LinkedIn page to be able to signpost customers to promotions and information on your products and services, and also to promote awareness of your brand. If you go to the next slide, there are a couple of some key considerations that I'd like to highlight for you in terms of social media. As I said before, social media is very, very strong in China. Social media is great when you've got a very positive message and you have a very kind of positive feedback going through, but it's challenging if there's more negative feedback. So when looking at China social media in China, it's important to really focus on trying to create positive messages. And the customers that do that very, very well are the customers, again, that target niche customers, target their customer activity. Many SMEs, instead of spending a lot of money on advertisements or on promotional literature, have actually targeted opinion formers within their particular niche, and they have looked to use them to influence communities of people on social media. So that's a very effective way that SMEs have been able to influence a segment of their particular market segment in the China market, and many SMEs have found that to be a good way of working. Many companies look to create opportunities for their customers to take pictures and to share great word of mouth with their different communities. So, for example, in food and beverage, many companies look to create photo opportunities, the selfies, the type of pictures that you can take on your phone and share with your community of friends. And that's a great way to get your brand and your experience and your values as a company shared between a particular community of customers that could become your existing customers and could be your new customers. In terms of managing social media, because a lot of it is in Chinese, and because when you're delivering marketing messages that really resonate, that really hit home, it is important to do it in Mandarin. Many companies do use social media management partners here in China. It doesn't have to be one of the big companies. There are smaller companies here that can assist you with management. Also, some SMEs do choose to employ a Chinese person. Some SMEs have actually chosen to recruit one of the many Chinese students that go and study in the UK to have them work in the company for 6 months just to manage social media, to help them get literature in Mandarin, to help them understand the China market, perhaps to help them invest in building the relationship with partners. So some SMEs really understand the power of delivering your message in Mandarin and the power of delivering your message over social media. And they're actually looking to recruit young, dynamic, smart Chinese students from UK universities to help them do that. And again, that works well for the business. And it also works well for the young Chinese student who's looking to build experience and to build international business experience for themselves in China. So if we go on to the penultimate slide, it's just a summary of the key things that as businesses we need to be thinking about in terms of developing a marketing plan for China. Overall, I think it's really important that companies take a marketing-led approach, first of all, to the market. Go with your customer, your Chinese customer in mind, and really understand that by forming your business around your new Chinese customer, that is going to give you dividends in terms of being successful here and getting a return on your investment. In the short term, you're looking to focus. You're looking to focus your resources and your finances on a particular market segment, and you're looking to localize the types of products and services that you want to do in a way that's really going to resonate with this target market. And you're starting to look and think about ways that you can communicate with this target market. In the medium term, you're looking at creating win-win relationships. You're looking at really at the value chain right from your business in the UK through all of your partners and stakeholders, through to your customers and your end users, building win-win strong relationships throughout that value chain that's going to make sure that you have a strong flow of messages, services and products going out to China, but also a good flow of information coming back on the changes that are happening in what is a very dynamic market, so you can react quickly in terms of your marketing plan for China. So the medium term is all about building those win-win relationships. And the long term clearly is about having a sustainable pipeline of business opportunities, sustainable growth for your business. Many companies, when they're starting out, when they're in the initial stages, they'll start small with a distributor or agent in a particular geographical area. They'll get it right. They'll understand how to do it successfully, what resonates with their consumers. And in the long term, then maybe they'll start looking at expanding into different markets in China. Maybe start looking at expanding into different product areas. So that long-term area is about developing deeper relationships and perhaps expanding your business into other markets, either tier 1 markets or regional cities, to help you really grow and make the most of what is a fast developing and still emerging market in Asia. So the final slide that I'm just going to finish off with are essential resources which are available to you. CBBC and British Chamber website right there. I mentioned previously the Regional Cities Report. If you want to focus your business on the geography, that's a great first place to start. Speak to a China business advisor in the UK. They can also help you very much. If you're looking for business opportunities, that's also on the CBBC website. The UKTI website also has a wealth of information which is really good to you. And as Mark mentioned at the start, the EU SME Centre and the IPR Help Desk from the EU are sources of excellent free information that can really give you a head start in creating a successful marketing plan for China. And on that note, I'm going to hand it back to London to see if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, Simon, for a very informative presentation and a lot of very useful tips there in terms of how to go about structuring your marketing plan for China. We do have a few questions coming through, some quite specific, some more general. The first one from Willow, you mentioned there that there were companies that can help SMEs to manage their social media in China. I just wonder if you can make any can you sort of recommend any companies, or do you have lists of partners that can manage social media in China?
Yeah, I think that there are a variety of different companies available, and certainly there are companies that we can recommend through CBBC. There are PR companies that do have interests here. That we can recommend through CBBC. We can find out and recommend that they contact their China business advisor. I won't give advertising to one on this particular one, if that's okay. And there are also companies actually set up in China. So if you are coming out on a perhaps a CBBC or a UKTI trade mission to China, which I would strongly recommend, you may be able to link up with some companies that were set up here, and that may also be a very cost-effective way of working with that.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we obviously here in London we do have partners. In fact, some of these companies also have UK offices as well, so we can certainly help put anything.
I think that's a really important point. If they have a UK office and a China office, that's a really big advantage, because you can go into the UK office, they can explain to you exactly what they're trying to do in terms that you are going to understand. You can sit down with them and talk to them about your brand and about what you want to do. So there's a real big advantage of having an office both in the UK and China in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So moving on to the next question. This is from Serena. You talked obviously about partnership as being the other P in the marketing mix for China. Serena's question is, how can you ensure that the agent that you use is trustworthy and will correctly represent your brand in China?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way in which the companies do it's a business risk. And there's always a risk when you start a partnership for the first time. And the recommendation that I would give is, first of all, be really clear on your criteria and to work with a company. This is something that the China-Britain Business Council does a lot, maybe perhaps 150 companies a year that we help in finding distributors and partners. And I think that have a real criteria and work with them, and the only thing that you can do really is start small. So maybe if they get excited about your product and maybe they want an exclusive deal for the whole of China, for example, and this does happen, we would strongly recommend that you take a very step-by-step approach to it. Start small, start with a particular geographical area, a particular project, and see how we go. And that's perfectly acceptable in China business culture, and perfectly acceptable in terms of business practice, because Chinese partners are all about building relationships as well and taking things as a step-by-step approach. And I have to say, to reduce your business risk, I would strongly recommend that you make multiple trips to China if you can, to invest in the relationship, just to check how the products are being handled, how the products are being promoted, and how that's being managed. I think that's a really important aspect. There's more cost up front, but it significantly reduces the risk in terms of the way that your business is managed there. And there's one other point that I'd like to make that Serena's reminded me about, is in terms of protecting your IP. Before you start engaging with partners, before you even start engaging in research, please make sure through your legal teams that your IP is protected in terms of branding, in terms of product, specifically for the China market. It's really important to protect yourself.
Yeah, and I'm sure. And actually, the issue of intellectual property is quite a big one, and probably one that we can't really go into in great detail here. But I'd also point people in the direction of the webinar that we had yesterday with the EU SME Centre, talking about due diligence and how to go about making those basic checks on partners in China, because often that can be a useful first step for sort of looking at the trustworthiness of a potential partner. I also have, I have a couple of questions coming through that might be a little bit more tricky for you, Simon.
Excellent.
This one's from Jacqueline. She says that she's been exporting to China for about 30 years. Their growth is stagnant, so they're not really growing at the moment. How do they sort of start to push their partner towards more growth and marketing? Do you have any specific pointers for a company that maybe has been in the market for a long time working with a partner but is struggling to sort of drive their partner to really push the business to grow?
Yeah, we do have clients that come in quite regularly. Well, not quite regularly, but from time to time that have partnerships which are not really fulfilling. And I think that in this case, I'd be curious as to know how frequently they go out to China and to work with this partner. Perhaps there's a bit of work to do in terms of going out and really understanding why is this happening. Are there other products which are easier for them to sell? Are there competing products that they are selling where perhaps they've got a stronger relationship with a competitor? We really have to look at a partner very much like almost a customer or a business. Basically, they are looking to find the quickest and easiest way to make revenue for their business, and that's the cruel basic business part of it. They, as distributors and agents here, will be focusing on their product portfolio, the part of the product portfolio which is bringing most revenue in for them. Clearly, what's happening in the case of Jacqueline is it's not a win-win right here. It's not a win for the UK company, and if they're not selling, it's not a win for the partner either. So it's absolutely fine. I would recommend that it's not done over email, over the phone. I'd recommend that they come out to China and sit down and have a discussion. China's very interesting. Sometimes people can be very vague, but also in terms of business, they can be very, very pragmatic. And when it comes to talking about win-win relationships, when it comes to talk about making revenue, they can be quite direct and quite pragmatic. And it's okay for UK companies to do that as well. So I think that the company needs to go out, spend time with his partner, understand why there isn't the growth, and have a conversation, say, listen, it's not win-win right now. Either what changes are we going to make, what changes do we need to make this work, or perhaps how could we amicably, and I stress the word amicably, kind of part ways and look at working with other partners in the market.
Okay, thanks, Simon. I mean, my just another comment to add there would be that partnership is obviously very important in the China market, and finding a trustworthy partner to work with that can drive your business. Some companies will also think about having their own full-time representative in China to work with those partners in order to engage in business development and marketing. And I think that sometimes can be a good way to drive a partner, sort of knowing that there's additional support locally. And there are various options for companies to have someone on the ground in China without necessarily going through the whole process of setting up a full entity in China. And I would encourage any companies where that is an issue to speak to CBBC, and we can certainly discuss in a bit more detail about options there. I'm just going to take one more question because we are running out of time. Obviously, anyone who has additional questions, please feel free to send those through to us, and we will follow up by email. We will also send out copies of this presentation and copies of the recording. But just the final question is from Vicky. Sorry, not from Vicky. From let's just have a look at. Oh, sorry, that's from Nick, and it's about the how easy is it for companies to employ Chinese people here in the UK? Obviously, there are issues around getting visas for Chinese citizens and students here in the UK. I just wondered, Simon, if you're able to sort of give us any advice on that side of things.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the visas, the visa rules have changed very recently to make it easier for Chinese people to be able legitimate Chinese people who are doing business to be able to work with us. But the specifics of the visa section, the visa issue is something that we'd have to check in terms of finding the graduates themselves. I think the career services within local universities near you would be able to point you in touch with very talented people. But I'd just echo really what Mark said in terms of if you can get somebody in market being your advocate here, it really will accelerate your business and what you do here. And if you can get a Chinese speaker back at home, then that will also help manage relationships and push things forward.
Yeah, in fact, just while we're on the topic, we actually had the Home Office in at our offices a couple of days ago talking about some of the changes there, and of course it is constantly changing the picture with visas for Chinese citizens. It is thankfully becoming a lot easier to obtain business visas and tourist visas for Chinese coming to the UK. And as I understand it now, there has been a change to allow for students, once they've finished their studies here in the UK, to spend I think up to 12 months working on an internship. So that sort of would give a company time to sort of test run an intern, bring them into the business, so I think that is also a potential option, is using an intern here in the UK, and then maybe that then turns into a full-time position in the future when the business is more established. So various ways of doing these things, but again, I would encourage you to reach out to a China business advisor in your area to discuss further. So thank you very much to Simon. Just to wrap up, as I mentioned there, we will be sending out copies of this presentation as well as the link to the recording, which we will do over the next couple of days. Please feel free to contact either Simon or myself for more information. My details are on the website. I would also encourage you to look at the events page of the CBBC website. We have a conference coming up in London on January the 14th, the China Business Conference. That will be, we're hoping that we'll sort of have 400, 500 people attending that conference, looking at issues such as the China consumer, livable cities in China, and China outbound investment. So encourage you to take a look at our events page, and please do contact us if there's any more information that you require. So with that, I will sign off and just thank you once again for all tuning in, and hope to see you all again tomorrow for the final webinar on CCC